Welcome to the Lakers Fast Break. Here we go. All right. Welcome to the show, everybody. I've got my two favorite guests on. In fact, they're the only two guests I ever have on, except when Elrod pops by or Gerald or Joe Soro pops by. Laker Tom and Michael H. from Marin and Hawaii, respectively. My name is, of course, none other than Jamie Sweet from the southern portion of California. As I continue my steady migration north over the
California.
I figure I don't know if I've ever said it. I'm sure I've said this at least once or twice. I started off in Costa Mesa and I'm steadily moving north. So I figure, I'll probably die in like Oxnard. somewhere thereabouts, maybe as far north as Modesto. I don't know that I'll make it too much further north than that. So how's it going, Darren? What's up? So we got a couple of things we're going to talk about today. Our esteemed podfather and the engine that keeps this choo-choo train a chugging, Mr. Jared Glassford, would like for us to address the Vegas odds makers placing the Lakers at 44.5 wins this season, which is 2 wins shy of what they posted for us last season, which they predicted we would win 46.5. And we beat that last season by a half game. We won 47 games. And I don't know that the West has gotten as tough as I feel like it got last season. So I think that's kind of a low ball figure. I think that this is sort of taken more into account that Memphis is, you got to count, Memphis at some point has to bounce back, right? Like at some point, Ja's going to play a whole season and that team's going to be back to something like what it was 2 seasons ago. When they looked like, the Knicks looked last season, where you're like, oh, look at this team. This team's like really putting it together. They've got it going on both ends of the floor. They've got a dynamic playmaker, yada, 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 so on and so forth. And that Houston is going to take another step forward, and OKC is going to take another step forward. And I think all those things are true. However, I think Denver took a step back. I think Golden State took a step back. I think Dallas, even though they added Klay Thompson, really kind of just treaded water, in my opinion. I don't know that Klay is going to make up for what they lost. And that's one of the things that I think people kind of tend to forget about in trades or when guys move up, when guys swap teams. And it's like, oh, they just lost 20 points a game. But then like 2 other players who made 12 and 11, which equals 23 points per game, left. Right. And so now you're like, well, actually now you're at 3 points short of what you were scoring with your team last season. The math gets a little complicated for some people at times, and it gets quite nerdy.
And they lost some defense on top of that.
I think they lost more than a little. I think they kind of lost a lot of defense. And look, Luka bought in the playoffs. I don't think Luka's buying in the regular season. He's gonna coast on the regular season like LeBron is. I'm not gonna say he's gonna stand there and do nothing, but I just think that the West kind of like stayed basically where it was.
The Clippers backpedaled as well. So
you're right, and the Clippers backpedaled as well. I think
the East got a lot tougher. Those East wins in the East aren't going to be there as many as they were last year.
I think there were 3 teams that like kind of poached Toronto, right? Like Toronto is obviously in rebuild mode, and there were 3 teams in the East that poached really good players from Toronto. Milwaukee ended up with Gary Trent Jr. Obviously, they traded Anunoby and Siakam to Indiana and New York, respectively. And those guys both re-upped with those teams. And there was somebody else that left that I'm forgetting, but maybe not. Maybe it was just those big 3 that moved on. But Toronto's obviously in rebuilding mode. Orlando's going to take a step forward. New York looks like it's ready to take a step forward. Even losing Hartenstein, I don't think that's a huge thing for New York. If Mitchell Robinson can put together a healthy season, he's more than capable of handling he's a better defender than Hartenstein was. Hartenstein was kind of like a do-everything center, and Robinson is an elite, in my opinion, an elite defender that's going to make it a lot easier for them to like focus on like a perimeter scheme and then be like, and just funnel it to Mitch, just funnel it to Mitch. But of course, everything assumes that everybody's healthy, and as we all know, the injury bug bites every team at some point. Some teams harder than others. So what do you think? What do you guys think about that? Is 44.5 wins a little too low? Right? I mean, it's a prediction.
Well, let's make our own predictions.
Yeah, I think it's
the best way to answer the question.
Well, all right, let's start with Michael. Michael, what's your prediction? Do you agree with the Vegas prediction? And do you?
No, I think they'll be closer to what they did last year. Primarily, when you think about it, they did what they did, and they had a huge amount of problems. I mean, at certain times they had 5 rotation guys out.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody talks about how healthy we should have done better because, LeBron and AD were healthy for the most of the part. But when we never had less than 3 rotation guys out at any given time.
Our coach never played the right players.
Yeah, and then we had a coach that mishandled it.
Huge portion.
So that 47 wins, I believe, would have been maybe 52, 53 possibly. If we would have had a reasonably healthy. I mean, I'm not talking super health. I'm talking just normal health.
Sure.
So
I don't know that Vincent and Vando are worth 5-6 wins. They might be. The combination of JJ.
You got to throw JJ in there versus Ham.
I can't in good conscience really talk about what JJ is going to do or not do.
But you have a realization of what happened with Ham, and the new coach is going to avoid a lot of those problems.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Well, it remains to be seen. You can't knock Ham as much as you
my head, man.
I know you're going to knock him, but this is why I don't knock him as much as I think people tend to dump on him and blame everything on him. He didn't have the rotation he wanted. I get it that he didn't play some of the guys at the right times, and it took him a long time to put Rui in the starting 5. Also not his fault. People tend to forget Rui was out for months with 2 different types of injuries. He had a nasal fracture, and he had a whole lower leg issue.
3 different injuries.
And he wasn't able to participate in training camp very much as a result. So, yes, Darvin Ham was not some sort of second coming of the greatest coach of all time. But let's not pretend that he had the perfect roster and all the guys that he wanted to play from the beginning of the season, because he didn't. But
we're talking about the same roster, I mean, this is essentially the same roster. That's what
So if this roster has better health, I think that's probably worth 3 games. Right, if Rui's in there from the start, and I think if I were the coach, I'd start him. Anyway, let's move on. Tom, what's your 44.5? Too low? Too high?
I think they'll hit 50 easily.
You think you're calling 50 wins? So, Michael,
I think Michael's right. I think it just amazes me that you can discount what I think is going to be a huge impact of the difference in the coaching philosophies of JJ Redick, who's going to shoot a lot more threes, who's really going to try to put the right players out there, try to have competition for every starting position, every rotation role other than AD. He's going to change the way that we're giving the ball to AD. You watch AD and Team USA and the way he's playing now. Michael said it when we were discussing things before we started the show that he's the best player on Team USA right now.
Sure.
And you add all of these things together, and if we can have even just a little bit better luck, like you said, Jamie, than we did last year, we should make 50 wins.
And let's not underestimate.
There may be teams out there that are approaching 60 wins, so we're not going to be among the top tier team or the second tier team. We might be a third tier team.
Yeah, let's not underestimate continuity either, because
even if it's unplanned, even if
this group has not been together that long. I mean, the end of 2 seasons ago, and then last season when everybody was hurt. So continuity is going to help a little bit too. I mean, all of these really good teams are together several years before they become a really good team.
This is true.
So continuity is going to help a bit. And I think Tom is right from the standpoint that, as far as JJ is concerned, I think he will utilize offensively. I think he will be better for this team. Defense is yet to be seen, but offensively, I think just listening to him talk and what he wants to do.
We're going to run plays, man. We're going to run.
Yeah, we're going to run plays.
A lot less freelancing.
I will say this: I am excited to see what that looks like. I mean, it would be a nice change of pace from both Vogel and Ham. Both Vogel and Ham tended to put the ball in LeBron and or Russ's hands and say,
"Yeah,
you go, girl."
And that not only makes you very predictable as an offense, but it also makes you incredibly reliant upon how hot your 2 big guys are. Whereas if you move the ball around and share it,
and the only 3-point shots you get is kickouts.
Yeah,
always.
That's it. or transition three.
This is one of the things that was one of the best of the podcasts that LeBron and JJ did, where they were actually talking about Hurley's offense, and the fact that what Hurley did was essentially take the philosophy of the 49ers offense, which is basically to have half a dozen basic sets that they run all the time, but every one of those sets can run every single type of play, so that you always have action happening off of the ball, so that nobody can focus on exactly what's going on. That falls into that same thing of running plays, set plays, where you have options so that eventually what happens when you become a team that runs a group of set plays like he's talking about is all of a sudden those options become part of your read and react offense, so that you're really not running plays. You're running sets that open up different opportunities depending upon how you read them. So we're going to see, I think, an offense that's much stronger. Now, defensively, like Michael said, especially if we don't make a trade and we don't end up with a defensive center to back up AD, that'll be an interesting challenge to see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of I tend to.
All our injuries were all defensive related. A lot of them were.
That was a problem. Yeah,
that was a huge problem. The two potentially best point of attack defenders basically didn't play last season.
Right.
Mando and Vincent barely played. Vincent played a little bit in the playoffs, but he looked rusty, especially on offense. He never really put it together on offense. I mean, okay, so some things for the viewing public, if you're not aware of where the Lakers are at right now, where I think just a couple 100,000. I don't think we're even $1 million under the salary cap, right? Or we're like $1 million.
$49,000.
$49,000. Thank you.
$49,000 under the second apron.
Yeah, under the second apron.
The Lakers should not, and let's face it, will not go over the second apron for any reason whatsoever. So if you're out there thinking like, why don't they just pick up this guy? There's a reason. We also have 15 guys on the roster.
Can I jump in for a second?
Huh?
Can I jump in for a second? I learned a new fact about the second apron that I didn't know.
Okay.
If you are in the second apron 2 of the next 4 years, your 2032 draft pick goes to the end of the draft, even if you were the worst team in the league, you pick 30th. You could win 13 games and pick last.
There's no reason to ever be in the second apron. Like, this is what I mean. Expiring money is going to be the new best.
Oh.
But there's still 3 or 4 teams that are going to be there
for a while. You will. This is the last time you'll see it.
No,
I don't. These guys already had it.
No, you know? I think you'll start to see. Listen, I think what you'll see. Like, let's just use for an example, Phoenix. Right? Phoenix is going to be on the second apron this season.
Right.
They were not in the. They were in the second. They were in the second apron last season. I can't see a world where Phoenix, if they're getting towards the trade deadline and they're not just running away with it, like just dominating, right? Where they don't move one of Durant or Beal. And I mean for like nothing. Like they might even pay a little bit to do it, right? They might even throw in some second rounders or something.
Zach LaVine trade.
The Bulls aren't over the second apron. And Zach LaVine isn't expiring. They're going to trade Durant for expiring money. They'll trade Beal for expiring money.
But all you have to do is look at the market value increase that the Golden State Warriors had as a result of paying those massive luxury taxes.
Right.
You understand that there is a scenario where that is how you win the lottery.
No, okay. If your goal is to win one championship, or if your goal is you just don't care about it.
Their owner does not want to win championship. He wants to create a dynasty.
Sure, but you can't create a dynasty with three guys on your team who are 35 and older. You've got a very.
Yeah, I know.
This is what I'm saying, right? Like this. That's why I'm using the Phoenix Suns specifically as.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're just gonna. I don't know if they're gonna give up on that. There's 3 or 4 teams that are definitely had options to get out of being over the second apron, and they obviously decided,
They don't have to.
We're not going to do that. We'll pay the tax and we'll assess those penalties. We'll accept them.
That's right. See, this is where I disagree. I think that they're going to roll with it to the point that they can, which is the trading deadline, right? Like if they finish the season with all this money on the roster, they're screwed. But trading deadline is that's the bailout moment, right? You know, you're free falling through space. You're hoping for the best, and that's the last moment you can.
Yeah,
open
but here's the problem. Here's the problem with that, Jamie. Right now, one of the problems that the Lakers have is there are only 2 teams left that can take money on. Everybody else is in the same scenario that they're up against the first apron or the second apron or some situation where they can't have flexibility. So, and all of these players that are looking for more than the minimum salary that are out there, there's a pretty impressive list of guys. I mean, there's no stars, but there's a lot of contributing players that could help any team. Those guys are going to end up taking minimum salaries a lot of cases.
Well, so this
it's not going to be easier at the trade deadline. I think what we've seen is the environment has changed.
Well, yes, of course.
The new CBA has changed everything, and it's still going to be here when February comes around, unfortunately.
Well, no, there's ways around it. There's ways around it. This is what we're talking about. So look, Steve, 2 things. One, Steve Ballmer came out and talked specifically about Paul George leaving and about how it pissed him off and he hated it. He's like, but look, like we can't function over the second apron. Like when it was just me spending money, I don't care, right? And that's specifically that sentence right there that Steve Ballmer said, I don't care about the money. I would have paid luxury taxes.
The anti-competitive things that are happening to you now when you go over.
On luxury taxes upon luxury taxes to keep the team together. I wouldn't have cared about the money. Now you're telling me I can't build a winning team. That changes my philosophy. And so we let Paul George go for nothing. He walked. So you're going to see more of that. The other thing you're going to see is that there will be teams like the Jazz, right? The Jazz, and you could argue even Brooklyn right now, are going to be the depository for junk contracts because they can send out a decent young player and probably another expiring contract that gets you back under the second apron and something that like makes it kind of make sense for your franchise. They'll take your draft picks, right? They'll happily take your draft picks and send you back an okay player and an expiring contract. And the fan base won't like it, but ownership will love it and the GM will love it because it maintains their ability to do their job.
And the league is likely to take action in the next CBA to limit the number of draft picks that can be done in a transaction or that a team can
I would not be surprised at that either because it's getting a little absurd.
Well, I mean, I've always had that dream scenario that when Wemby came up, I would have offered 10 first-round picks if I was Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I
turned down 10 first. Here's our portfolio of 29 picks. Take your pick of it. First 10 you want for Wemby.
I would have done that.
I mean,
I would have done that.
Yeah, I would have. Any general manager would have done that. Imagine the Lakers with 10 more picks just out of the air.
The Lakers don't have 10 picks, Tom. That's some fantasy you're living out in your mind. But would you have done that?
They traded it for Reeves. 10 picks for Reeves.
No, nobody's.
It's hard to say because at the time you hadn't seen him play yet, so maybe
I would have done.
I don't know if I would have done it. How often does somebody that good come along?
I don't know, but like I think if I were
once in 50 years, I'm looking right.
Think about this. Think about this. When they traded Trae Young for Luka and another first round pick that they got. So they got 2 first round picks for one.
Right.
Look how that turned out.
Terrible. That's a good point. And we don't really know if Wemby's going to be all that. He looked great in his first season in San Antonio.
But there's a whole bunch of Wembys coming along, man. That's what I see. You look at the young kids that are coming along, they're all like 6'8", 6'9", 6'10".
Yes.
And super leapers.
Yes. We'll see how
you have to expand the court in a few years. It's going to become. Can you imagine 10 Wembys being on the court?
Anyway, I don't know. This now we've kind of got derailed here, but look, let's bring it back. This is the reason the Lakers aren't making moves. They're capped out. Their roster is full.
They're waiting for somebody to fold, and they're waiting for one of those 3 or 4 teams that they're dealing with. Just
Yeah.
drop the price.
I don't know that we're really dealing with any teams. It doesn't sound like we're dealing with any teams. It sounds like they would like for a player to kind of land in their lap. Frankly, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit absurd if you ask me. So this is
They don't have enough. Pelinka doesn't have enough courage to
hold on a minute.
Hey, this is the guy I'm going to bet on. Instead, he's saying, whichever deal comes first, I'll take that guy.
I don't think it works like that, but sure. I know that in your mind that there's all these wheeling and dealing. I think a lot of people are just not talking right now. I think a lot of teams. I think Golden State is interested and probably has the best offer on the table right now for Lauri Markkanen. And Danny Ainge wants more, and they're not going to budge. They want Podziemski and Kuminga. They should be happy with getting Kuminga. They're not going to get Podziemski because he's too young, too good, too cheap, and Golden State needs young and cheap and good. Every team that's competing needs young and cheap and good. That's why we're Reeves. That's why we're willing to trade D'Lo or Hachimura, because D'Lo and Hachimura pretty much.
What is the percentages you give that trade?
Like 12%. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that in like 2 weeks.
You think they're going to re-sign him on August 6th?
That's exactly what's going to happen.
I think that's probably what's going to happen unless they offer the two of them.
They might not extend them for the max. They might. So I'm trying to put forth a scenario here, but we keep getting derailed because you keep just wording out comments. So give me a second here. This is the question. I would prefer looking at moves around the margins because I don't see us busting up a bunch of picks, but nuking the team for somebody like Levine or somebody like Markkanen or somebody like Young at this point. If you were going to do that, you were going to do it the first 2 or 3 days of free agency when there was more fluidity within the league. You could have involved 2 or 3 teams. There was a lot more options available. A lot of those options are gone now. You really just kind of have to figure out what you can send out and bring back the same amount. I think the Lakers should go up to 2 second-rounders to move one of Reddish or Wood. My preference would be Reddish because I kind of feel like we need size, and I feel like with Hachimura and a healthy Vando, Reddish kind of becomes a luxury you don't really need. I would like to see Reddish go out for up to 2 second-rounders into somebody's cap space so that we get some flexibility back. And here's another thing I learned about the new CBA. The MLE can be used as an exception. So you can send the MLE out and get a chunk of money. So we could attach Reddish and our MLE to another team to give them another tool. I don't know how that works financially. I just sort of read about it today for the first time, and I thought it was quite interesting. But I would like to see us then use whatever money we can get back for that to get. I'm actually going in a little bit different direction. I would rather us get Tyus Jones. I would rather us pick up Jones so that we have a true playmaking guard off the bench. We do not have a true playmaking point guard on the team right now. We have Reeves, who's okay. We have D'Lo, who's okay. We have LeBron, who's fine. We have Vincent, who's fine. Tyus Jones, his assist to turnover ratio is 7-1. 7-1. He's like Caruso when it comes to scoring, right? Like he doesn't score in bunches, but he scores efficiently. And so I just don't understand why we wouldn't go for a guy like that when turnovers have been such a huge. He's going
to get more than the taxpayer MLE.
Who's going to offer him more?
Nobody.
It'll be a sign and trade with somebody. And he wants a starting position. He doesn't. That's why he went to Washington. That's why he was a free agent. He went to Washington. He doesn't want to come off of the bench he's tired of being this best backup point guard.
It's too late. All right, let's start with you. Michael, what do you think about that idea?
Well, I agree with you that, yeah, he's the best point guard available. And here's the deal. If we're shopping Vincent and or D'Lo, whoever we sign should be a point guard. If that's our plan down the road, D'Lo made sense in trade for Murray, but he doesn't make sense for a trade for another position and leaving us without a point guard. So we need to.
Well, you could do two combo guards. You could do Reeves and another combo guard.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, I know. It's not as good as D'Lo. You're not replacing D'Lo's playmaking that way.
So even Vincent, even if we're going to move Vincent, we should have somebody to replace him off the bench. So I think you're right there, Jamie. I don't know what at this point what Jones has kind of screwed it up a little bit. I mean, there's guys that have. I mean, Trent Jr. had left $15 million with the Raptors on the table to get his minimum wage. So Dennis Schroeder all over again, right?
Yeah, you're seeing more and more Schroeders.
Yeah. So I think that he would be ideal. I just don't know what he's thinking, especially if he's going to be a minimum guy. He might want to go someplace that's going to have some room next year, where they could re-sign him for something more.
We would be those teams though, because we're going to lose 4 players after next season.
Right. But not a whole lot of salary.
He's probably at the top of the list of the guys that are available, though. So you're still competing with a lot of teams. Although there's not that many teams, and
there's not much. Do you know that no team has used their MLE this season? Not one. Not one team has used the MLE this season.
It's those aprons, man.
But this is what I'm saying. Every agent went into the offseason with a huge miscalculation. Every agent of these second-tier, third-tier players went into the offseason thinking, my guy's going to get the mini MLE at the worst. And it's not there.
The non-taxpayer at the best.
Non-taxpayer MLE has not been used by any team.
That's why we had all those guys opt in.
Right.
That is exactly right, Michael. That is exactly right.
Because they couldn't get that.
They couldn't get that anywhere else. So they're like, well, we know we're valued here.
Right.
We have a condo or whatever, a casita in the back of LeBron's house where I'm living, and I'm good. I'll live in LA for another year. Like, I'm good here.
But the Lakers have basically said, JJ has basically said that our greatest need is for a bully ball center, defensive center to back up.
I agree with them.
So I think that, and so what that leaves is you always have, and especially if they're not making a big trade. See, that's why I think that the Walker Kessler direction is the one that makes the most sense, because he doesn't make the kind of money that means we keep D'Lo until at least the middle of the season.
What does Walker make?
All of a sudden, you've solved the point guard problem, so now you can focus on him.
Can you remind us what Walker makes, please?
I think he makes around $5 million.
Kessler,
thought it was 8.
3.5 to $5 million.
No, he makes $2.5 million.
$2.5 million. Okay.
Yeah, he's still on a rookie deal.
Right.
And he was a later in the first round pick.
Yeah, but we also have the 27 pick that we already owe the Jazz, so we can take away the 1 to 4 protection on that.
Danny is in no hurry to trade him.
We have a deal.
Danny is in no hurry to trade him.
Yeah.
He's going to hold him for as much as he can get. And if that means going to the trade deadline, he's going to do that.
Well, so I was reading an article.
But this is giving him the equivalent of, let's say, 1.5 picks, since he's already got the 27 pick.
He turned down 2.
He turned 2 first round.
Yeah, but I don't think that's reasonable. He's had an off year, and Ainge is always a high price guy, and a lot is going to happen around August 6th. August 6th, we'll find out what they're going to do, because everybody wants everyone wants that number 1 pick next year for Flag, and so it's going to be. And Danny Ainge, I mean, how many games do you think Lauri Markkanen is worth for the Jazz winning? 10 games?
If they draft Cooper Flag, he's kind of a perfect big to go alongside a guy like that.
Yeah, but to get to Cooper Flag, he could be worth 10 games.
Yeah, he gets an ankle injury. I'm not worried about. That's kind of ignoring.
But Flag is basically.
I mean,
if it were for Wemby, Flag would be the best prospect in the last 10 years.
Here's another thing with Lauri. If they do sign him to an extension, he actually becomes more tradable, because he can't walk on you the next year.
Yeah, but August 6th he has to be traded before August 6th. If he signed on August 6th, his 90 days goes past the deadline. He can't be traded till next summer.
Well,
that's why August 6th is such a critical day. Because they're trying to do the same thing we did with Vando last year, or at least they're threatening to people that if you don't make a trade for him by August 6th, we're going to sign him, and then he won't be tradable. He won't be available on the market.
I mean, that in my opinion, that is the most likely outcome. Like I put that because for three.
I think he's too good to trade away.
Agreed. He's too right. This is the thing. He's good. So it's not like a Zach LaVine thing where you're like, this guy's kind of garbage. I mean, he makes a lot of money. And
he's a great number 2.
He's not expensive for what he brings to the table, right? Like he's very reasonably priced.
Right.
And 3, Ainge doesn't undersell.
Well, but he's also eligible next year for an extension.
Sure, but I mean,
it's going to be a max extension, so
he might not. We're looking at Brandon Ingram not getting a max extension.
Well,
extensions are also going to go away. I think that what Jalen Brunson did made over the time become the norm. Not the norm, but like not as surprising as it was this summer. This summer, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, you should have blah blah blah." And it's like, yeah, but like,
well,
what do you want to do?
That's always a bet on me or don't bet on me. Betting on himself was a smart move for him.
Well, he wants to win, and like, what are you willing to do to win? What
Those types of deals always,
We'll see.
You're always betting on the future, and a lot of guys want to lock in as much as they can.
I understand that.
Some guys are willing to. He lined that up so that when he's on his 10th anniversary, that he's just primed for getting his biggest contract of all.
I think that is why. I think he's smart in a couple of different ways. One, he's giving his team a chance to win now,
right,
which will only increase his value in the future. And so he is in a way betting on himself, similar to like what Reeves did, where everybody thought Reeves would like go out and try to find like a $15-20 million deal. And I think Reeves did the smart thing. He was like, you know what? I'm going to go for this guaranteed money right now. I'm going to lock myself in. I'm going to put myself in a situation to win. And if I get traded, it's likely going to be to a contender. So it's an easily tradable contract. I don't want to go play in Portland. I don't want to go play in some podunk. I don't want to do what Kyle Kuzma did, right? Kyle Kuzma was like, I want to make a lot of money and I want to shoot a lot of step back, fadeaway jump shots. And I don't want anybody telling me I can't do it. Right. And so he's in a perfect place for that. He's in the perfect.
Yeah. Listen, we got a 1 out of 30 chance of ending up on the Lakers. If that's not a value to you,
all right. Well, let's move on. So anyway, these are I would even be fine if we overpaid to move both Wood and Reddish if we brought back in like, and I know you want to see somebody like Kessler. I have a hard time seeing that happening. I think we could maybe do JHS and 2 first-round picks and take the protections off the one we owe, and that might get it done. To me, that's a.
Oh, I would give up one. I would give up the pick as well as taking away the protection.
No, I'm saying 2 more picks in addition to the removal of the protection. That's what Danny's looking for, right? He's basically looking for.
That's negotiation. That's negotiation.
That's
right?
and that's the line Danny Ainge will draw in the sand.
And he has
there
till February.
are other options. There are other options.
He has till February, and he's going to hold his cards until February.
There's no pressure to move the guy right now.
Yeah, there's none.
That's why I'd be willing to shell out a 2nd-round draft pick to move Reddish and a 2nd-round draft pick to move Wood and bring back beyond.
Well, I could give him the 2 2nd-round picks that you were going to give him. I'll add those to what I'm giving him. We'll see if maybe that'll make a difference.
I just don't think it will. I think he's going to wait.
The problem is that here's the problem. The problem is that at this point in time, I don't think that Belinka has offered even anything other than perhaps taking the protection off.
I would agree.
He's not offered one of the 2 picks for Kessler.
I would agree with that
because he's trying to be Danny. He's trying to be Danny Ainge himself. He's trying to win the deal. Winning the deal is more important to him, frankly, than making the right choice that's going to really help the team.
Well, we don't know what
he
the
courage and the savvy to make the right choice, and then to overpay for that. That's a smart thing to do right now because we're in a situation where everybody's paralyzed, not knowing exactly where it's going, not wanting to make any big mistakes, and wanting to be careful and thinking, "Oh, I still have until February."
Well, here's the deal. I don't think that Kessler is their first choice.
I don't think so either.
I think they're more interested in Carter Jr. I mean, he is probably the best guy. If you're going to spend one of our draft picks, he's probably the best. He would have the most upside for this team of anybody else. Other guys you can get moves the needle.
He's not as good defensively. He can
bang.
Good of a shot blocker.
But he can bang and he can hold his ground. He's 270.
Both of them have size. Both of them, those are the two guys that have the size. They could really be a help against.
And he has an offensive game.
Does have an offensive game. I still think. I mean, I understand that we're all looking at the shiny pony. That is Walker Kessler. I don't know that he's on the market and I feel the same way about Wendell Carter Jr. I don't know that the Magic are actively interested in trading Wendell Carter Jr. because he's cheap. He helped them get like farther than they've gotten in like 2 or 3 years. And like everybody that you're talking about trading for him isn't as good as him. Most teams don't trade good for bad, especially teams that are on the rise because they want to see what.
Funny why he's been on the market for so long too. It's strange.
Has he really been on the market? Or is it just like clickbait people who are like, well, I got to talk about something today. Blah, blah, blah.
He's listen, there's almost every fan base has their untouchables. He's not an untouchable for their fan base, and he's not an untouchable for the.
I think the way we would get Carter isn't a straight one-on-one trade. I think we would. They're still.
They want to pick for him.
They're still trying to work out their point. They don't have a real point guard.
Right.
They have combo guards. They're still trying to work that out. I would think that we would be more inclined to help them in a trade. Send a pick and a contract to somebody.
Or D'Lo. D'Lo's a perfect fit for them. They need shooting.
And he would be perfect. He'd be a perfect fit. And he would open up cap space.
Yeah,
as well.
Right.
So I mean, that's something to think about.
He would open up enough money to use the MLE.
Yeah.
So then you could bring in Strickland or spend half of it on another couple of minimum salary things that don't pan out.
If that panned out, if we traded D'Lo for Wendell Carter Jr. for like a couple picks, then I would use the MLE that we have to get Jones. That would be.
Or at the worst case,
I'd love it if we could do that, Jamie. Jones is really at the top of the guys that are left. If anything's going to get more than if anything's going to be signed and traded for, it's probably going to be somebody like him.
Maybe. I think that the problem is that I think a lot of the guys that would want to, a lot of the teams that have a point guard need aren't contenders.
Right. I also like very much the idea of return if we have Strickland coming back.
You mean Strickland? You mean Dinwiddie?
Dinwiddie.
Well, you jump back like 15 years there. Rod Strickland, is that who you're thinking?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Could have been.
I don't know. You said
Spencer Dinwiddie.
I like Dinwiddie. He was.
I think with a training camp and with a defined role, I think that
this is my problem
with a combination of offense and defense.
Yeah, but this is my problem with Dinwiddie. He's exactly like the other three guards that we have on our team. He's not really a playmaker. He's not really a defender. He's not really a shooter. He's good, kind of good at all three, but he's not dynamic. And that's what I like about Jones is that it like really adds a specific quality the team does not have.
Well, we don't have a point guard. Obviously, he adds a quality that we don't have. And
my point,
that we don't trust from. We don't trust from. Gabe,
with Jones, though, you have to remember that he's a defensive liability as well.
Yeah, but so's Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie's no defensive weight.
He's better than
Dinwiddie showed me a little bit this year that I hadn't seen before from him. He made a couple of plays that won games on the defensive end.
I feel like in a little way, in some ways, Tyus Jones gets a bad rap for his defense because he was on a Memphis. He came off the bench on a Memphis team that wasn't great at defense when Steven Adams wasn't on the floor. He often didn't play with Steven Adams, and then last season he was on a team that didn't defend anybody. He was on the Wizards. The Wizards just run around and shoot terrible shots. Like that's what they're doing right now.
Well, the point being that. You're replacing D'Lo with a guy who probably is not as good a passer, even though he has one of the best assist ratio in the league. But he's also criticized for that he doesn't make doesn't try to make the home run play. He makes a simple play, and he takes care of the ball.
It's effective and it works.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now we're
It
getting into
works, but is it enough?
Yeah, but now you're just talking about stylistic differences, and I don't know that.
I mean, if we could get in for the MLE, God, it's a beautiful move. We just haven't been able to. I haven't been able to see us winning those types of getting guys in the right situation.
Well, I don't think any of us thought Gary Trent Jr. would sign for the vet minimum either.
No.
Right? No, nobody in this.
But there's, how do you? Here's the problem that I have, and it's a problem I've had with Rob Pelinka from the beginning of his career with the Lakers, is that I don't really have any confidence that he is making the right moves or wanting to make the right moves. And he's always willing to kick the ball down the road, and he's always willing to. I don't see him as a dominant voice in the conversations that we're having in the front office with the Bus Brothers or with the other scouting people. It's not like he's not a Morey. He's not a Morey or the guy that the Clippers have, basically, Frank. He's not making those types of deals. And he generally seems to be, he just doesn't have a vision for, he never wants to, these other general managers spot guys that they want and they go after them. And if they have to overpay to get the guys that they want who fit exactly what they need, they're willing to do that because they understand the value of getting the right fit. It's a lot more important than winning the deal.
Well, I think that stems from a lot of things. It's not just the GM; it's that we've had 4 coaches in 6 years.
Well, it's also the environment that Pelinka operates in. It's
also that the Lakers prefer star power over internal building. There's a whole host of reasons, but let's not.
To be fair to Rob, I cannot imagine the scenario where he's not trying to create a roster spot.
Agreed.
I'm sure that he's on the phone looking for somebody to take somebody.
But he's not willing to pull the trigger yet. Why?
I think a lot of dominoes.
Because nobody said yes yet, Tom.
Yeah.
The other team has to say, okay, let's make a deal.
So, yeah, that's true. But then you counter. Then you have to decide at a certain point that you counter.
We're talking about moving
or you just
a standard move in the league is to
move second round picks to get rid of guys and open up spots.
Yeah, and if nobody's taking,
he's not willing to do that right now.
How do you know? How do you know he's not willing to do that?
Or he would have.
I cannot imagine that he's not trying to do that. We have the other thing, the big elephant in the room. Nobody wants to help the Lakers.
Yeah,
and that's true. That's not a fantasy. Nobody wants to help the Lakers.
I tend to agree with that. All right, let's move on from this discussion because it's getting to be circular, and circular discussions always annoy me at a certain point. Let's talk about and finish it up with our thoughts on the what I consider to be a stark turnaround for the summer league team that was losing games by the handful, and I feel like they made a conscious stylistic change, not to shoot fewer threes, but just to take better threes. They're not shooting threes, but they're not shooting them as a first resort like earlier in the shot. They're kind of playing with a little more intent, let's say. And I think that a lot of that comes from I think the defense picked up a little bit. I think that guys making shots of any kind helps. When if Maxwell Lewis had maybe the best game I ever saw him have 2 nights ago. It's 2 nights ago. Yeah, 2 nights ago. I still tend to think Maxwell. I would rank Bronny ahead of Maxwell Lewis right now in terms of like importance to the team. Right, I don't see a role in the NBA for Maxwell Lewis, but he had a good game the other night. Took fewer threes, took the ball more to the rim, hit his floaters, took jump shot. Took mid rangers, hit the mid range jump shot. I think that there are pieces on the summer league team that are worth developing over time, and that. Sorry, my daughter's asking me a question. Come on here and just ask the question.
Daddy?
Yeah.
I wanted, I don't want Zig and Sharko on the boat.
Well, give me a minute and I'll come help you, okay?
I want them on the island.
Fantastic. I'll help you in 1 minute, okay? Thank you. When she whispers questions, it's hard to understand what she's saying. It's like let's not. So Gerald, you may want to edit that out. It's like about at the 44-minute mark. Anyhow, I've really liked what I've seen out of Colin Castleton in terms of, I'm not saying he's going to be the backup center next year. I think he's probably still another season of developing, but I kind of like him. He's kind of like he reminds me of like a poor man's Vukovic, where you can give him the ball at the elbow, and it's a nice way to like, guys can rub off of him. He's a decent rebounder. He's a decent playmaker. I'm not saying he's going to score a lot of points in the NBA. I don't think that's his role, but I like him as a kind of a poor man's facilitator for a second unit that maybe, since we don't have many true point guards on the roster, you need to generate offense somehow. And that to me makes kind of sense. I've been very impressed with how Bronny James has really kind of seemed to just tune out all the noise. Again, he looks like a late second round draft pick. I'm not saying anything other than that. He looks like a guy who needs some work in the G League. He looks like a guy who has a lot of work to put into his game. But to bounce back with 2 really solid games after the deluge of criticism from professional and amateur people is, to me, impressive. And I've been overall generally impressed with Dalton Connect throughout G League. I think he's been, or Summer League rather, I think he's been our most consistent player. And I think that there's something there. I don't think he's going to start. I don't think he should start. I think he's got a lot of work to do on the defensive end. But I could see a world where, maybe he ends up being kind of like a microwave scorer off the bench, 10, 15 minutes a game, need a 3, need a bucket. You put Connect in with some other guys and you run. Here's the crazy thing. You run a play for a guy who can shoot.
That's madness. That's madness.
I don't even know why we're talking about it. It's like it's alternate reality. So Tom, I don't know if you've watched a ton of the summer classics and the summer league, but what are your thoughts on all that jazz?
I pretty much agree with you 100% on all of it, Jamie. Yeah. LeBron has always said that his son is a lot different than he is, and you'd have to be to grow up in the shadow of LeBron James. And Jamie, to a certain extent, his son is Bronny. Really seems to be his own man, and you have to give LeBron credit for the way that he's hung on there. He basically has shut out the noise on this situation, and he's showing that he basically can play the game. I like his. I think that they're really prone on trying to develop him as their point of attack, developing player. And he has the skill set to really fill in that. I think that the other, he's obviously earned the respect of the other players that are around him. And he handles himself like a real professional. Yep. I'm just as impressed as I could be with his demeanor and his character and how he's handling it. And I think that's a testament to his father and mother and the way that he's been raised. And I was not really a fan of him joining the Lakers. I think that it would have been more healthy for him to be in a different situation. But this is what he wanted. This is what LeBron wanted, and this is what Jeannie wanted. So I can't complain about it. As far as Dalton, boy, I love what we're seeing from him. He looks like a guy who's could easily be a 9-10 guy in our rotation.
I agree.
A guy who you can send in as a microwave scorer, and I think that's his role. And listen, all of this ties together. In a normal season like last year or the year before, I really am excited about JJ Redick being the new coach of the team, because I really feel that being able to devise plays and focus your offense and gear things toward the personnel that you have, and really making smart decisions and listening to analytics and having your team focus on the various things that are obviously what their strengths are and covering up their weaknesses and so forth. I think that we're going to see a different kind of approach that is going to be much more savvy and much more effective than we've seen in the past. There's a reason why there's such a disjoint between the fans and the team at times. And it usually happens when the team is playing poorly. And when the team is playing poorly, it's usually related to the way they're being coached and the decisions that the coaches and the front office are making. So we have a lot of advantages being the Lakers because there are a lot of players who want to play for us. And a lot of people like to be in LA rather than back east in the cold area or in the Midwest and so forth. So there's a lot of advantages, but there's also disadvantages because, like Jeannie says, it's not as easy to win, to dominate the way that her father was able to do in the early days, or the Celtics in their heydays. It's a lot harder, and you may still be a team that wants to win multiple championships and not just going for that one win every 30 years or so. But
all right. Well, now you're completely off the rails of our point, so I'm going to let Michael now talk about what his thoughts on Summer League are.
Okay, well, Bronny, I agree with you guys pretty much on Bronny. He is a project. He shouldn't have been paid what he was paid, but I have no problem them drafting him. He got a little bit, nobody 55 pick gets that, but LeBron lowered his salary a little bit, so we're just giving it to Bronny instead of LeBron.
That's how I look at it.
But the thing about it is that he's got some real tools. I mean, he's very athletic. He's undersized for a combo guard, but he has a 6'7" wingspan, makes up for a little bit of that,
and a 39-inch jump.
Yeah, and he's very athletic. We've had successful undersized defenders. I mean, on the Lakers, Pat Bev is undersized, Dennis is undersized. Bradley was undersized, and they were,
everybody we seem to get is undersized, isn't it?
But they're Bulldogs, and so he can work out a place there. He has to really fine tune he has to become more of an offensive player. I think that's going to be more of a challenge for him than defense. I think he'll be okay defensively. Maxwell Lewis, the best thing I can say about him is that he's only got $100,000 guaranteed next year, so he's basically a expiring deal that we could move. If we can't get somebody to take Cam, hey, take a shot at this young guy. Give him a chance. See how he looks in your G League.
Not a bad.
And he's making $100,000 next year. I mean, almost nothing.
Right.
And then Dalton. I'm excited about Dalton for this. On the G League team, he is the man. Everybody's focusing on Dalton. Can you imagine? I think he's going to be a lot more efficient. Maybe not score. He's not going to be scoring 20 points a game, but he's going to be a lot more efficient playing alongside some of the Lakers. Because he's going to be, when he's on the court, even if one of the other guys are off, he's going to be at best third or fourth option. And with his shooting ability and his ability, he's a 3-level scorer. He's going to be a lot more efficient scorer. Now, can he defend? And we've seen so far that there's questions there about his defense. I mean, and it's really kind of funny to me. He plays bully ball on offense. Yeah. He's always seeing him knocking people around, getting into them. But when he's on the defensive end, he's getting knocked around. Yeah. The dude's big. He's 6'7". He's got something in his back pocket,
He just needs some footwork on that, lessons on that end, I think. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm pleased with the last couple of games they've had.
You think they had a better draft this year than last year?
Better draft this year than last year?
Yeah,
I think so. I mean, the thing about Hood Shapino, and it's really hurt us even for a trade value. Is he missed a whole bunch of games at the beginning of the year. He was hurt. He finally got healthy, had a brilliant run in the G League where he was being considered maybe the best, if not one of the two or three top guys in the G League playing. And I watched him play, and he was great. He was fantastic in the G League. Then he blows out his back, has to get surgery. So there's this little bitty window of playing that was, So we really don't know what we're getting with him. And so do other teams that may want, we said, well, it'd be like trading the first round draft pick. Well, these guys, he's recovering from back surgery. Who's going to take that on? So that really was one of the, when you look at it, which one of the things I think that's really killed us in trying to move some of these guys, when you look at, Vincent missed most of the season. Cam was hurt all the time. Wood finished, the last 30 games injured. Hood Shapiro got back surgery. We had all these medical questions on these guys.
We got all these guys on a roster that
all have medical question marks behind them. And so that hasn't helped.
Trying to dump too many guys is the problem. We got too many guys to dump.
Yeah, so
that's something about the general manager.
That really hurt us, was when there were so many, so many guys that you want to move, but they all were banged up last year severely, so, but get back to your point on the better draft. Yeah, I think Connect in itself makes it a better draft, just because I think that
we had a better draft.
We got a real steal with them.
Yeah.
I tend to agree. There's some questions about Jalen Hood-Schifino in the chat. I'm just going to answer them real quick. Yes, he is still recovering from back surgery. That's why he did not play in the summer league at all.
He is practicing, though.
He is practicing. So that's, positive-ish news.
Yeah.
Somebody said that he's 6'6" and still has upside. Yeah, I tend to agree. I just, the Lakers just have, there's not time for development.
Sometimes you hit them, sometimes you miss.
There's like four to five guys that we're trying to develop all at once, and the Lakers aren't like in that kind of rebuilding mode right now. They're in win now mode, and so kind of the best.
These guys will be rotation guys if we have injuries. That's the problem.
The thing about Hood Shapiro was that he was another guy that fell to us. I think that's why he was drafted, because he was projected as a lottery pick.
Really?
Yeah, he was. He was, and he fell to us.
Well, who's the guy we should have got? Who's the
which one of the guys we should have got?
Marquez was obviously the one that I really wanted, but the other guy is the
Cam Whitmore.
Yeah,
Cam
Whitmore's doing great,
and he's young too. I mean, if we're going to take a flyer on, but then again, he fell that far because of injury issues.
Yeah. You don't know who's in favor of whom in the back of the Lakers office, the front office.
Because Cam Whitmore was a high draft pick, and then he had terrific amount of injuries over the last 2 years, and everybody was looking at that going, well, I don't know. Finally, he fell far enough to make it worth somebody's while, and they paid off for them. Also, what's his name? The Warrior guy got past us too.
Yep. But
this is. I literally just posted a comment where somebody just said, "Yeah, Cam Whitmore and Podes." So yeah, the draft is the draft for a reason. Nothing's guaranteed. You're always there. Outside of the top 5 picks, you're kind of just hoping for somebody to come along quickly.
Some teams consistently do well, and some teams are very erratic. And I get all this. You get all of this praise that we've gotten in the past, but it's usually it's like for Reeves, and do we deserve a great praise for Reeves in this particular situation?
Late second rounder.
Well, Hood Shapiro, I think, still going to be a fine player. It's just that the Lakers were in no position to take a project.
Yeah.
He's 19 years old, barely 19. He was a young 19.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have been looking at projects. Now, what makes Dalton different is he's older and he's NBA ready, so he was perfect. But they shouldn't have. They should have been looking at guys that could help them right now in last year's draft.
Yeah, I guess we should be happy that they didn't screw up this year.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. None of these guys have actually played in the NBA yet, so we'll see. I that is my hope. I'm hoping. So all right, we're coming up on an hour here. A couple other comments that I'm just going to highlight right now. JHS is another THT. I think that's unfair. Listen, THT.
Yeah, I don't think he's as good as THT. Really, that's really unfair. That's unfair.
He's going to be out of the league this year, dude. THT's a garbage player. He's just utter garbage. He has long arms.
Well, yeah, but Hood Shapiro hasn't shown as much as THT showed.
And he played about 5 minutes.
THT showed me one thing, which was the ability to kind of guard one of
They were both bad draft picks.
And we really shouldn't have paid THT $8 million over Caruso.
Oh, what did he cost us? He cost us Caruso.
That is the true error here. It wasn't a mistake to draft THT.
We should have traded for Lowry. We should have traded him for Lowry, man. That was just another mistake.
We could have. We just should have let him walk that season. Listen,
I almost had a heart attack at that trade deadline thing.
I remember that trade deadline. That was the second.
Was horrible, man.
Second year in a row where I predicted we wouldn't do anything, and you were like, "No, for sure, we're doing stuff." Da, 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 da.
Oh, Jesus, Jamie.
I watched that trade deadline special, and it was both funny but also kind of sad because I felt bad for you because every time like it was like we have news, you were like,
I'll tell you a secret.
Yeah.
I may come off as a crazy rabid fan, but when I sit back and try to evaluate what makes me happy and why I'm alive and why I'm still healthy and everything,
yep.
It has nothing to do with my fandom because those aren't the things that count.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not what life is about.
All right, so I'm going to end it there because that's a nice way to end the show on a high note like that. I'd like to thank Michael from tuning in and contributing from Hawaii. I'd like to thank Tom from tuning in and contributing from Marin County. Yes, Brian, or I'm sorry, K, whatever your name is, KC. I can't say that. Anyway, USA basketball is about to start. So, for those of you that are excited about Team USA, you can now stop watching us in like 1 minute when I'm done signing off.
We got the Lakers at 4, so our last preseason game.
Last summer league game, so that's exciting. And I hope we win because that would be a nice way to close it out with the 3 Cubs. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Keep checking back in. I'd like to thank Gerald, Joe, all the people who contribute, and have yourselves a lovely weekend.
Aloha.